Hi again everyone. I just wanted to do some more work on those little canvases that I made out of a recycled stretch canvas. I really like this one because it's got this lovely dark section at the bottom. Anyway, I thought that we would possibly do a collage today and see what we can come up with. I've just gathered around all these scraps of paper. There's some tissue paper, text, more text. These are just out of an old children's book that I gathered years and years ago that was all damaged. Just some little pieces of, various papers. And I thought that might be tonally quite nice on the background that I've chosen. Here's some handmade paper. So let's go. What we can do first of all is just start tearing up some papers. Now, I definitely don't want to cover the whole thing. A little bit of text. This is a piece of paper that I actually bought just at an art supply store. Little bit of the handmade paper that I showed you earlier. Okay, I think that's enough. I think we've got enough there to make a nice collage. Put these papers to one side. How do you do? That might be nice somewhere on here. Okay, so now we go to gluing. Worked out a basic composition. So I'm just going to grab my PVA glue and I'll be right back. So this is PVA, just wood glue. I generally just water it down a little bit. It's much too thick on its own. So just using a few drops of water. Mixing up just a little emulsion there. Just put that to one side. Make sure everything's in the frame for you. I'm just going to start gluing on. Get some lovely little wrinkles happening when you use tissue paper because there's already quite a little bit of texture in the background too. Always use plenty of glue and make sure that you get right to the edges there. so that everything is sealed down really, really well. Just using the brush to make sure everything's tightly glued. So we'll take a little bit of that handmade paper. Okay, making sure you get right to the edges. Just adding a little bit more water to that glue. A little bit of text here. Could use old music or maps, pieces of maps. A little bit of that handmade paper. And then my few little words that I had. How do you do? Just put that in there. Okay. Now that's got to dry off. And while it's drying, I'll show you how to make a butterfly. So what I've done, I've got some almost transparent paper, and it's got little threads in it. You could use some coloured tissue paper. Any paper would do, really. You could use text if you wanted to. You could use some watercolour paper, or even just some sketching paper would be fine. What I've done is I've folded it in half, and then I've just taken a 2B pencil, and I've done half of the butterfly's body. Then I've just drawn in the wings all the way around, and then I've made some little areas that I want to cut out. What I do then is I just use a blade. You could use scissors if you wanted to, and you just cut around the butterfly and take these little sections out. And what happens is you're left with this and also your butterfly. So there we are, we've got a butterfly. It's going to be symmetrical because it'll be the same on both sides when we open it up. And there we have it. Gorgeous little butterfly. So I can think about where I'm going to place it on the paper. And when I look at it, it fades away a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a little bit of watercolour on there. So here we go. I've just got some watercolours. Making sure everyone can see what I'm doing. So the choice of colours, just looking at this background, it's got a little bit of red in it, or pink. It's got some lovely yellows and darks too. So Let's start off with a little bit of, this is Opera Rose. It's a Daniel Smith colour. Now you don't have to use watercolours, you could use acrylics if you wanted to. You could even use watercolour pencils. So I go over that body for now. A little bit of yellow ochre. So you'll notice what I'm doing on one wing, I'm doing the same thing on the opposite wing. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of turquoise. This is phthalo turquoise, because we've got those lovely greeny colours in the background. Now when that mixes with the pink, it's going to give me a lovely purplish colour. It's beautiful how it's just starting to run in the paper. A little bit of that ochre down the bottom here. Using plenty of water. To make sure that those colours blend in with each other. Okay, I'm just going to dry that off, and I will come back to you really soon. So here we are. Here's our delicate little butterfly, all ready to be glued on. I just wanted to show you the lovely impression that I got of another butterfly that was made when I actually painted this one. The paint went through the paper. So always keep those, you never know, you might be able to use something like that again. Okay, back on with our glue. Deciding where to put our butterfly. Don't want it right in the middle. Just off centre a little bit would be nice. Okay, so that's got to dry, but in the meantime I just want to add some of the colours that I've used in the butterfly into the painting as well. So this is a little bit of the opera rose. And a little bit of the phthalo turquoise. Just taking a little bit of tissue paper there, just fading that back a little bit. I don't want it to be too prominent. I think what would be nice would be to get a lovely dark edge on this painting. So I'm going to use some Sodalite Genuine. Now if you don't have that colour, that's a Daniel Smith colour. You could use a Payne's Grey or an Indigo. And see how the paint is doing a lovely job of just running into those little bits of texture that we had already. Let's give you a little close-up of that in a moment. There we go. So we'll just dry that one for you and come back very soon. So we're all dry. I'm just going to take a Posca pen. Any fibre tipped pen would be fine. Now I've got some of these lovely markings that I was already on the papers that were there, so I'm just going to repeat some of those as I go through. Just really, really randomly. Next I'm going to take a wax crayon. This is a Holbein, and it's just like a pastel, and you've seen me probably do this in some of my other videos where I'm picking up some of the highlights on the textured areas. just skimming over the top. You notice that I'm using the side of the pastel. I'm not using it like this. And I think we're just about finished. I just like that butterfly to stand out a little bit. So I'm just going to use a smaller brush and a little bit of watercolour. Just adding quite a bit of water to it. This is a little bit of ultramarine blue. So I've just got a coloured pencil just to give me some separation on these wings. Now if your paper that you used is non-absorbent, this is really absorbent, that's why I decided to go with colour pencil. But if you're just using a paper, you can just use your watercolour to do this. But on this tissuey type paper it just tends to bleed, so that's why I went for the coloured pencil. We are mixed media, we are mixed media, so we can do whatever mediums we want to do. So just adding this little bit of shading near the body. I'm just seeing if that's dry, and I think it is dry enough just to add a little bit more of that colour here and there. And I think that we're almost there. There's nothing much else that I can do to improve this drawing. So I hope you've enjoyed watching and you have a go at doing some mixed media.